quiet corner of the world where the horizon meets the sea and the sky is always a tender shade of dusk, there is a chair. Simple, yet ancient in its quiet elegance. It has seen the world unfold like a dream, cradling the weary in its gentle embrace, witnessing stories whispered by the winds. It is a deck chair, but not just any chair. This one holds the weight of time itself. Do you hear the distant lull of the ocean? Do you feel the soft, warm touch of the evening breeze against your skin? The rhythmic song of the waves? The world around you settling into quiet harmony. The story of the deck chair is not one of simple wood and canvas, but of journeys, of lives changed by the fleeting moments it offered. If you enjoy stories like this one, remember to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the sky above, stretched like a canvas, painted with the softest hues of purple, orange, and gold. The day has come to rest, and the world begins to slow, as if it too is ready to slip into a peaceful slumber. The wind is gentle tonight, a soft whisper that rustles the leaves, brushing against the distant hills and curling through the branches of ancient trees. Every breath you take seems to draw in the quiet of the twilight. The air smells of salt and the earth, rich, alive. You find yourself walking along the edge of the shore. The ground beneath your feet is smooth, worn by years of the ocean's touch. The waves break in slow, lazy patterns, their whispers blending with the rhythm of your breath. Each step brings you closer to the water and closer to a feeling of release, as if the whole world is exhaling with you. In the distance, you spot a small boat bobbing gently in the water, its sail catching the last light of the sun. It's anchored there, waiting for the coming night. Its journey paused, just for now. A distant lighthouse stands tall on the rocky cliff, its light sweeping across the horizon, steady and eternal. Beneath it, There is a wooden deck, worn and weathered by time. It has seen countless sunsets, each one unique, but always the same, endlessly beautiful and profoundly peaceful. And there, on the edge of the deck, lies the chair, the deck chair. It's not grand, not in the way some things are. No gilded frame, no ornate carvings, just simple wood, canvas, and the promise of rest. Its slats are softened with time, its fabric faded by the sun and salt water. But in that simplicity, there is something more, something quiet, profound. As the wind carries the scent of the sea, you can hear the faintest creak of the chair, as if it's remembering. It has seen so much, so many stories whispered into the air, so many lives woven together by the pull of the ocean's breath. The chair waits, just as the world around you does. It waits for you to come closer, to take a moment, to sit and let the world rest with you. Once, in a small coastal village, there lived an old sailor. His name was Elias, though the villagers simply called him the traveler. His hair, long and white, like the sails of his ship, was always wild, as if the winds themselves had never quite left him. His skin was tanned and worn by years spent under the sun, and his eyes, those eyes, always seemed to be gazing toward the horizon, watching for something. Elias had seen more than most could imagine. He had sailed the world's vast oceans, charted forgotten lands, and heard stories that no one would believe. And yet, when he spoke of his travels, he did so in whispers, as if not to disturb the quiet beauty of the moments he'd witnessed. But Elias was not one to sit still for long. His rest came only in brief moments, caught between the adventures of his endless journey. And when those moments arrived, when the world seemed to pause just for a breath, he would always find his way to the same spot, the deck of an old ship, the edge of a rocky cliff, or even a simple wooden pier here by the sea. There he would find his peace, sitting in the chair that had followed him through it all. It was an old chair, one that had been with him since the earliest days of his travels, long before the world had started to wear it down. Its wood was smooth, its canvas faded, but it held something more, a quiet promise that no matter how far he went, no matter how many years passed, it would always be there, always ready to offer rest, even in the middle of the storm. One evening, as Elias sat beneath a twilight sky, the air heavy with the scent of salt and pine, a young traveler approached him. She had long, dark hair and eyes full of curiosity, her footsteps light upon the weathered planks of the dock. Her name was Elara, though she would later become known for the way her laughter sounded like the ocean itself, wild, free, and untamed. She paused as she saw Elias, seated in his chair, gazing toward the horizon. The world seemed to hold its breath, the silence between them stretching into the distance. "Do you mind if I sit?" Elara asked, her voice soft, tentative. Elias turned his head, his gaze lingering on her for a moment before nodding. "This chair," he said, his voice like the rumble of thunder in the distance, "has seen more than most would believe." Elara smiled and sat beside him, letting the calm of the evening wash over her. She could feel it. There was something about this place, something ancient in the air, in the wood of the chair, in the sound of the waves against the shore. It was as if the very earth was holding its breath. And then, as the wind shifted, Elias spoke again, his voice carrying a hint of nostalgia. "This chair has seen the stories of the sea, but there's more to it than just that. You see, it didn't start as a chair at all. The sound of the waves, the soft rustle of the leaves in the evening breeze, and the deep, rhythmic creaking of the old chair, all seemed to pause as Elara turned toward Elias. Her curiosity piqued. The world around them was slow, as if it too was waiting for his words to fill the space between them. Elias sat back, his eyes fixed on the horizon, as if the past were rising there, like the fog over the water. He was lost in a memory, a moment long ago, one that had shaped the very chair beside him. It didn't start as a chair, Elias repeated, his voice softer now. The words weighted with something that felt older than time itself. It was a ship meant to carry the hopes of 1,000 souls, and yet it carried only one. Elara leaned forward, her gaze never leaving him, as if afraid that if she blinked, she might miss something important. She could feel the air around them growing heavier, thick with the ancient pulse of the sea. The stories that only time could tell. Long ago, Elias began, his voice deepening. There was a ship, the Persephone. It was built for the greatest journey, a journey across the world, through storm and sunshine, from the icy north to the burning south. The Persephone was more than just wood and sail. It was a dream, the dream of explorers who wanted to see the unknown, to understand what lay beyond the horizon. They believed the sea held the answers to all things, the secrets of the universe, perhaps even the key to immortality. Elias paused, his fingers absently tracing the edge of his chair. The only sound between them, the gentle whoosh of the ocean air. It was on this ship, he continued, that I first encountered the chair. At the time, it was no more than a simple thing, a place to rest, just like the hundreds of others on board. But there was something about it. It seemed to call to me. I never quite understood why. And yet, when I first sat in it, something shifted inside of me. Elara's brow furrowed slightly, her mind following the trail of his words. What happened? She asked softly. The old sailor smiled, though it was not a smile of joy, more of a knowing, as if he had learned something too deep for words. What happened? Elias said, his voice now barely a whisper, was that the sea began to change. For a moment, the silence between them was thick. The wind stopped altogether. The waves stilled. It felt as though the world was listening. The only sound was the soft creak of the chair. Elias let out a sigh, a sound as ancient as the sea itself. At first, it was nothing more than a few waves too high, a breeze too sharp. But then, he trailed off. Then, one night, we found ourselves in a storm that we could not escape. The ship groaned, and the winds howled like something alive. I could feel the ship trembling, its heart racing, and yet, as I sat there in that chair, I felt calm, a stillness that I couldn't explain. Alara looked out over the water, the sun now dipping low, painting the sky in shades of indigo and amber. The air grew colder, and yet she felt no discomfort. Something about Elias's words made the world seem slower, as though time had been stretched out, softened. "What do you mean by calm?" she asked. With all that was happening, how could you feel calm? Elias took a long breath. It's hard to explain, but sometimes, when you're in the middle of something that feels like chaos, you realize that the only way out is to let it wash over you, rather than fighting against it. It was as if that chair held something beyond just wood and canvas. It connected me to the rhythm of the world itself, and in that moment, I understood. The Persephone wasn't just a ship. It was a vessel carrying dreams. And those dreams, like the waves, carried me. Alara sat silently for a moment, letting his words wash over her like the sea itself. She had never known the feeling of a storm like that, but somehow she could almost feel it now. Its raw, untamed power, and the strange peace Elias had found in the eye of it. "And what happened to the Persephone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias shifted slightly in his chair, his face softening as he looked at her, the flickering lamplight casting shadows across his features. The ship, it didn't survive the storm. We were lucky to make it to land, to be honest. The sea, it can be kind, but it is also unforgiving. We lost many good souls that night. A shadow passed across Elias's face, his eyes clouding over for a moment, as if the weight of those memories had come rushing back. Elara could see that it was not easy for him to speak of the Persephone or of the lives lost. Yet, he continued, his voice growing softer with each word. After that, I left the sea for a while. I couldn't bring myself to sail again. But when I returned, it was with a new sense of purpose. The chair, I found it again, though it had been tossed and broken by the storm. I took it with me, not knowing exactly why, but I knew it had been a part of something important, something that needed to be remembered. Elias paused, his fingers now tracing the edge of the chair once more. So, I fixed it, rebuilt it, and now it has become more than just a seat. It is a reminder that no matter what happens, there are always moments of stillness in the storm, and that in those moments we are never truly lost. Elara's heart fluttered in her chest. She had heard many stories of the sea, but none like this. None that spoke so deeply of the human soul, of the way a chair, so simple, so humble, could carry the weight of an entire journey. And as Elias spoke, she understood. She understood why the chair seemed to hold something more than the sum of its parts. But just as she opened her mouth to ask him more, to dive deeper into the story, a shadow passed across the water. The wind picked up again, this time sharper, colder, like a warning. Elias turned, his gaze narrowing. The sea is calling, he said, his voice distant. It always does. In the end, and it will call again soon. Elara felt the chill of his words settle around her. The chair creaked, almost as if in response, and though the world around them seemed to hold its breath, she knew that the story was far from over. Something was coming. The wind grew stronger now, its cold breath sweeping across the deck and sending ripples through the water. The faintest sound of waves crashing against the rocks echoed in the distance, as if the sea was preparing itself for something. something ancient and inevitable. Elara looked to Elias, her mind full of questions, but she said nothing. His eyes had drifted to the horizon once more, a faraway look in them, as if the past was unfolding there, just beyond the line where the water kissed the sky. For a moment, all was still. The deck chair creaked softly, as if it too felt the weight of what was coming. Then, without warning, Elias spoke, his voice low and steady. It was after the storm, when the ship was lost, that I first realized the chair held a power I didn't fully understand. But I wasn't the only one who saw it. Elara's heart skipped. She had been waiting for this part. The part where the chair's mystery deepened, where the story turned from something ordinary into something extraordinary. "What do you mean?" she asked quietly, leaning forward, drawn into his tale. Elias's eyes flickered to her, then away again, as if to collect his thoughts. After the Persephone sank, I made my way to land, like many others. But the chair, it stayed with me. It was all I had left of that ship, of that life. And so I carried it with me, even as the years passed, even as I wandered from port to port. It seemed inevitable. He paused, his eyes narrowing as the wind picked up once more. And there were others who saw it too. People who would stop me in the streets or at the docks, asking where I had found such a thing. Elara frowned. But it was just a chair, wasn't it? Elias smiled, though it was a sad smile, tinged with the weight of 1,000 untold stories. That's what I thought at first, too. But sometimes, Elara, things are more than they seem. This chair, it was never just wood and fabric. It was a piece of the sea itself, a piece of something older than the world we know. His words hung in the air between them, as the wind carried the scent of salt and earth, the faintest hint of something more. When I first found the chair, it had been abandoned, half buried in the sand on a remote shore. Elias continued, his voice growing softer, more reflective. It was a place no one had ever visited. A stretch of beach so wild and untouched that even the sea seemed to hesitate before reaching it. And there it was, half sunken in the sand. A chair, but not like any I had seen before. It seemed to call to me, almost as if it were waiting for me to find it. Elara was silent for a long moment, her mind swirling with the implications of what Elias was saying. It was hard to believe that a chair, something so simple, could carry such weight. But in the stillness of the moment, with the evening darkening around them and the ocean stretching out like an endless canvas, she couldn't shake the feeling that Elias was telling the truth. The chair was old, even then. Elias murmured, his voice tinged with reverence. Its wood had been worn smooth by the touch of countless hands, its fabric torn and faded, but it still held the shape of something greater. I couldn't explain it then, and I still can't now. But I knew that chair had seen things that I could never understand. Elara nodded, lost in the depths of his story, her thoughts drifting like the wind that swirled around them. And what happened after you found it? What did you do with it? Elias's gaze grew distant once more, his eyes fixed on something far beyond the horizon, something only he could see. At first, I didn't do much with it. I just kept it close. It became my companion, a silent witness to all that came after. But over time, I began to notice something. The chair wasn't just a place of rest. It was a place of change. It seemed to influence the people who sat in it in ways I couldn't explain. People who rested there, even for just a moment, would leave with something different, something awakened within them. Elara's heart raced. You mean it changed them? Elias nodded slowly, his face grim. Yes, but not in the way you might think. It didn't grant wishes or offer power. It simply opened them. It made them see the world through new eyes, as if the chair could reveal something hidden deep within their hearts. Some people would sit there, and when they stood, they would leave behind the things that held them back: fear, regret, doubt. They would be lighter somehow, as if the weight of their own lives had been lifted, even if only for a moment. Alara shivered, the thought of it both thrilling and unsettling. "And what about you, Elias? What did the chair reveal to you?" He took a long breath. His eyes filled with a depth of emotion that made Alara feel as though she were standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable. "I don't know if I can explain it, but the chair, it taught me something important. It taught me that sometimes the answers we seek aren't out there in the world beyond us. They're within us, hidden beneath all the noise and the chaos." The chair helped me hear that silence. It helped me listen to the ocean inside my soul. There was a long pause, the only sound the steady sigh of the wind, the waves lapping against the shore. The light from the lantern flickered and danced, casting long shadows across the deck. And then, in the distance, the faintest hint of a sail appeared on the horizon. A dark shape, slowly drawing closer. Elias straightened in his chair, his gaze narrowing. "It's time," he said quietly, almost to himself. Alara followed his eyes, her heart fluttering in her chest. The sail grew larger, its shape becoming clearer, though the ship was still too far to see clearly. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias stood, his old bones creaking as he did. "That is a question I can't answer yet, but I believe that the chair has one more journey to take, and this time it will be different." As the ship drew closer, the wind seemed to change, picking up speed, pulling the air in a new direction. Alara felt it then, a strange sense of anticipation, as if something ancient was awakening, something that had been waiting for just this moment. Elias turned toward her, his face set with a quiet resolve. Stay with me, Elara. There are things you still need to understand. But before she could speak, the sound of a voice, distant but clear, reached them from the darkening horizon. Ahoy! Sail there. Are you the keeper of the chair? The voice was carried on the wind, faint at first, but growing louder with every passing second. Elara's heart quickened, her gaze fixed on the darkening horizon, where the silhouette of the ship loomed like a shadow, its sails now fully visible. The air felt thick, charged with something that she couldn't quite name. Elias stood still, his posture stiff, his expression unreadable. The creaking of the chair behind him seemed to echo, as if the seat itself were aware of the coming change. Keeper of the chair, Elara whispered under her breath, repeating the words the voice had called. Elias's face softened, but only slightly. His eyes grew distant again, as if the past was rising around him like mist. It seems we've come full circle, he murmured, almost to himself. He didn't move at first, his gaze locked on the approaching vessel. The wind had grown stronger now, whipping the waves into a gentle frenzy. There was something almost mystical in the way the ship glided through the darkening water, as if it were drawn toward them by an invisible force. Elara couldn't help herself. "Who are they?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder and just a hint of fear. Elias looked at her then, his weathered face lined with years of experience. Yet there was a softness in his gaze that told her he understood her fear. "They are seekers, Elara, just like I was once. But their journey is different. The chair has a way of bringing people who need it most, and they will not stop until they find what they are looking for." The words sent a shiver down her spine. There was something both comforting and terrifying about the idea of people seeking something so elusive, something tied so intimately to the sea, to the chair, and to Elias himself. The ship grew closer still, its sails now fully open, catching the wind. The crests of the waves seemed to bow before it, as if the very ocean itself were offering its respect to this mysterious vessel. Elias took a deep breath, as though gathering himself for something he had known would come for years, but could not fully prepare for. I've always known it would end like this, he said softly. The chair. It has a way of drawing people in. It has always been a part of something bigger than me. Alara turned to him, her heart full of questions. What do they want with the chair? Elias closed his eyes for a moment, his expression distant. The chair is not just an object. It is a doorway, Elara. A doorway to understanding, to transformation. But only those who are truly ready can cross through it. The rest, those who seek it for the wrong reasons, will never truly understand. Her breath caught in her throat as the ship drew close enough that she could see the figures aboard. Dark shadows moving with purpose. It was impossible to make out their faces, but their presence was undeniable. A figure at the helm of the ship raised a hand, and the voice that had called out to them earlier rang across the water once more, this time louder and more insistent. Keeper of the chair, the voice bellowed. We seek the chair. We seek the wisdom it carries. Elias did not flinch. He did not even seem to acknowledge the call. He simply turned back to Elara, his eyes steady, filled with a quiet strength that made her feel as though she were witnessing something far older than time itself. You have a choice now, he said gently. You can stay, and you can learn, or you can leave. But whatever you choose, you must understand that once you enter the world of the chair, it will change you. It will show you things you might not be ready for. Elara swallowed hard, her mind spinning with the gravity of his words. What did it mean? This choice. She felt a strange sense of destiny, as if she had been swept along by currents she couldn't control. The chair, the sea, Elias. All of it seemed intertwined in ways she was only She hesitated, unsure of what to say, of how to even begin to process the enormity of what was unfolding before her. I want to understand. I want to know why the chair matters, why it has such power. Elias nodded slowly, as though he had been expecting this answer. "Then come with me," he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that calmed the storm of uncertainty inside her. "But be warned. Once you understand, you will never look at the world the same way again." As he stepped forward, Alara followed him. The sound of her footsteps mingling with the creak of the chair behind her. The wind howled now, whipping around them with increasing intensity. The ship had come so close that she could see the figures on board. Tall and imposing, their faces obscured by the shadows of their hoods. And yet, there was something about them that seemed familiar, as if they too were part of a greater story, one that had been written long before either she or Elias had arrived. The call of the voice echoed again, and this time it was not just a request, it was a demand. "Give us the chair." Elias paused, his back straightening. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of this unspoken tension. "No," he said, his voice low but firm. "The chair does not belong to anyone. It belongs to the sea, to the journey, to those who are truly ready to listen." The figures on the ship hesitated. For a moment, there was silence. An aching, uncertain silence that seemed to stretch across time itself. Then one of them stepped forward, the silhouette of their form becoming clearer in the dim light of the evening. "I've come for the chair," the figure said, their voice cold and firm. "And I will have it." Elias's eyes narrowed, but there was no fear in his gaze, only a quiet understanding. "You will not take it," he said softly, but with absolute certainty. "The chair will only give itself to those it chooses. And you, my friend, are not ready." A long silence fell, and Alara felt her heart beating in her throat. What would happen next? What would become of the chair? of the ship, of all the souls tied together by this mysterious force. And then, with a final, decisive step, Elias turned towards her, his eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "It's time to go," he said, as the ship drew closer. "Come with me." The storm was closing in, but Elara couldn't help but feel that this moment was just the beginning. Something was about to unfold that would change everything. As she took Elias's hand, the chair creaked once more behind them, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The ship loomed just ahead, its dark silhouette a stark contrast to the shimmering expanse of the sea. The waves seemed to part before it, as if the ocean itself respected the vessel's approach. The air was heavy with the scent of salt and the anticipation of something extraordinary, something inevitable. Elara stood beside Elias, her breath shallow, her heart racing. The figures on the ship had not moved since they had first called out. The space between them and the ship felt like an eternity. An unspoken moment stretched thin with tension and wonder. For a moment, there was only the sound of the wind, a soft howling that made the distant lanterns on the ship flicker and dance. Elias, still standing tall, finally turned to face Elara, his expression a mixture of resolve and tenderness. "Do not fear," he said softly, his voice calm despite the storm that seemed to be gathering around them. "The chair chooses its path, Elara, and you are part of its journey now." She nodded, though her mind was full of questions. How had they come so far? What was this mysterious force that had tied them together? Elias reached out, gently touching her arm. "Trust it. Trust yourself. The chair will show you what you need to see. But it is up to you to decide whether you are ready for what it will reveal." The ship drew closer still, and the figures aboard began to move, their forms becoming more distinct. For the first time, Elara could see their faces, pale, almost ethereal in the dim light. Their eyes were filled with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. They were not simply men and women. They were something else. something older, something bound to the chair itself. One of them, a tall figure draped in a dark cloak, stepped forward, his voice carrying across the now still air. "Give us the chair, Elias," the figure called, his voice deep, almost sonorous. "You have kept it long enough. It is time for the chair to fulfill its purpose." Elias didn't flinch. "The chair belongs to no one," he replied, his tone unwavering. "It has no purpose but its own, and it is not yours to command." There was a long, tense silence. The tension between the ship and the deck palpable. Elara could feel her pulse racing, her mind swirling with thoughts of the unknown. Then the wind shifted, as if carrying with it the voice of the sea itself. The ship creaked and groaned, the shadows of its passengers moving in eerie unison. Elias stepped forward and Elara followed. Their steps seemed to echo across the deck, each footfall like the ticking of a clock, marking the passage of time. As they reached the edge of the deck, the figures on the ship fell silent. All eyes turned to the chair, sitting still beneath the lamplight, a quiet observer of everything that had transpired. Elias paused for a long moment, his gaze lingering on the chair. "It has waited a long time," he murmured, almost as if speaking to it. "It has carried the weight of many lives, but now it carries yours." He turned to Elara then, his eyes soft but filled with a quiet strength. "Are you ready?" Elara nodded slowly, the weight of his question sinking deep into her chest. This was the moment when everything would change. She felt it in her bones, the weight of the choice before her. The chair seemed to glow in the lamplight, its weathered wood and worn fabric now gleaming with an almost ethereal light. It no longer seemed like just an object. It was alive in some way, alive with history, with secrets, with memories of a time long past. The figures on the ship began to stir again, their movements slow, deliberate. The tall figure in the cloak stepped forward once more, his eyes locking with Elara's. You do not understand, he said, his voice low and almost sorrowful. The chair was never meant for you. It is an artifact of the sea, an ancient power that can never be fully comprehended. You do not belong to this world. Alara took a step forward, her heart beating louder now. But I am part of its journey, she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of everything that had led her to this moment. And so are you. The ship fell silent. The wind seemed to hold its breath, and for a long time there was no sound but the gentle creak of the deck beneath their feet. Then, with a sudden, quiet movement, Alara reached down and touched the chair. The moment her fingers brushed against its worn wood, something shifted in the air. Something ancient, something vast. The world around them seemed to pause. The ship, the figures, the wind, everything stilled. And in that stillness, Alara heard it. The chair's voice, not in words, but in a feeling, soft, soothing, powerful. It wasn't a sound she could hear with her ears. It was something deeper, something inside her. She understood then. The chair wasn't a tool, an object to be controlled. It was a vessel, an expression of the sea's power, its wisdom, its ancient longing. It was not bound by time, nor by place. It was a guide, a keeper of stories, of journeys, and she, like Elias, was a part of that journey. For the first time, she saw it all clearly. How it had brought her here. How it had brought Elias. How it had touched the lives of so many others. She felt the weight of its history, its power, its purpose, and with that understanding, the figures on the ship fell silent. The tall figure in the cloak nodded slowly, almost with respect. "It is done," he said quietly. Elias turned to Alara, his face filled with a deep, peaceful smile. "You have learned what you needed to learn," he said softly. The chair has shown you what it needed to show you. Elara looked at him, her heart light, her mind clear. And now Elias looked out at the sea, the dark waves glistening under the dim light of the lantern. Now we let it go. The chair's journey is never truly over. It will continue, as it always has. It will find its next keeper, its next story to carry. The ship slowly began to drift back, its sails catching the wind as it turned away from the shore. The figures aboard vanishing into the mist, leaving only the memory of their presence behind. Elara and Elias stood there together, watching as the ship disappeared into the distance. The sound of the waves returning to a peaceful rhythm. The chair, now still and quiet, rested behind them. Its journey had not ended, but for now it was at peace, and in the soft quiet of the night, Elara knew that the chair had given her something more than answers. It had given her the understanding that all things, people, places, objects, were part of a larger story. A story that was always unfolding, always moving forward. As she turned to Elias, she felt a warmth in her chest, a connection to everything that had come before her and everything that would come after. The night sky stretched wide above them, the stars twinkling softly like ancient memories, and the sea whispered its secrets in the distance. "Good night, Elara," Elias said softly, his voice a gentle lullaby in the cool air. "Sweet dreams." And with that, Elara closed her eyes, letting the calm of the night wash over her. The chair's story had ended for now, but she knew, deep inside, that the journey would continue wherever it was meant to go. And as the world fell away into sleep, she felt a peace unlike anything she had ever known. Good night, sweet dreams.